Hi, everybody. I'm Brittany Lewis, a breaking news reporter here at Forbes. Joining me now is Senator Marsha Blackburn. Senator, thank you so much for joining me.
Good to join you. Thank you.
We've had a busy week. 4 rounds of documents in relation to Jeffrey Epstein were unsealed over the past week, and they've revealed some high-profile names that were associated to the late sex offender. For you, what is the biggest revelation that came out of this document dump?
For me, the focus is keeping that attention on criminal activity. This is not about celebrity. This is about what has happened with these victims and survivors. And one of the focuses that I've worked on as the top Republican on the Human Rights Subcommittee is fighting against human trafficking and sex trafficking. What we know is that Jeffrey Epstein built a global sex trafficking network. What we do not know is who all was affiliated or associated with him in this network. And we have, over the last few years, watched as human trafficking and sex trafficking has become a $150 billion a year business. This is something that is exploiting women and children. We need to break apart these rings, these sex trafficking and human trafficking rings. We need to find out who was affiliated with Jeffrey Epstein, and being able to subpoena his flight logs, Ghislaine Maxwell's black book, the video footage from his homes that the FBI is in possession of, and view the documents with details and information from some of the survivors where the FBI has conducted interviews. This will give us more information that we can work from to begin to break apart these rings.
You've been really vocal in calling for both what is described as Ghislaine Maxwell's little black book, as well as the flight logs to be subpoenaed, to be unredacted. You wrote a letter to Senator Dick Durbin last week requesting that these be subpoenaed. Has he responded?
I have not heard from Senator Durbin. Of course, he's the chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee, and he has previously twice blocked my call for a subpoena and a vote at committee on this. We have heard that he said he's willing to work with me on a bipartisan basis, but we would like for him to step forward and support the subpoena request to the Epstein estate.
I just want to get to the bottom of this for my viewers. What or who stands in the way of getting these flight logs released? Are you saying it's Senator Dick Durbin?
We know that it will take a subpoena, so getting a vote on that and having the committee back asking for these, issuing the subpoena to the state, to Jeffrey Epstein's estate, that's going to be an important step. That's one that we need to do. Also to the FBI, making certain that we can get these other documents. This is information that the FBI has not been forthcoming on. I was very disappointed in Mr. Wray's response to me when he was before us at the committee hearing. And as the head of the FBI, leading that organization, for him to say, well, he hadn't really looked at the Jeffrey Epstein case in quite a while, that was disappointing. So we need their attention on this. This human trafficking and sex trafficking that's taking place, this is modern day slavery. So their support, the committee support, is going to be important to get these documents, to have that transparency, and begin to hold these traffickers accountable, and for the wrongdoing that they have done, to see their prosecution take place.
I do want to talk about Christopher Wray in just a moment, the FBI director. But before that, are there any other Democrats on the Judiciary Committee that you could team up with to get these flight logs released?
We are talking with several of the committee members. We would love to have their support.
And now I want to talk about FBI Director Christopher Wray. In his Senate Judiciary Committee hearing last month that you mentioned, you noted that Epstein victims alleged that the FBI did not do enough to help them. You told FBI Director Christopher Wray that, quote, you need to right that wrong and get to the bottom of the Epstein case. From then until now, has he or anyone in the FBI gotten back to you, given you an update, anything like that?
No, it's been crickets. They've had absolutely nothing to say. They have sent nothing to our office. They have not reached out for any type of update. And of course, as the top Republican on the Human Rights Subcommittee, this is information that we need in order to begin this process of accountability. You know, the other thing too, it's important to understand how these sex trafficking rings are working and how they're managing to evade law enforcement. Getting more of this documentation would be helpful, because it's up to us to put in place penalties and enforcements and to make certain that the law is being followed.
What other evidence is there that you know of? You mentioned that the FBI could be in possession of some video. Do you know that for a fact? And what does that look like? Can you provide us any more details there?
The video is video that shows the comings and goings from Epstein residences.
Got it. Understood. And after you get the unredacted flight logs, let's say you do, can you lay out a timeline for us? What exactly does that look like?
What we would like to do after we get these flight logs and have an idea of who all is involved in this, then it would be a matter of structuring hearings, subpoenaing individuals and structuring hearings so we can gather the information and find out who their associates and affiliates are. The human trafficking, sex trafficking rings are global enterprises. We know the cartels are involved in this. What we need to do is begin to break these apart so that these sex trafficking rings, human trafficking rings, are not able to operate on U.S. soil.
And how exactly do you break them apart once you get this evidence?
Enforcement of the law and putting in place penalties and enforcements.
And you've been at the forefront of this conversation for a long time, calling for the release of these documents, of these flight logs. What do you think's missing from the national conversation?
Awareness is something that we keep trying to build. And of course, January is Human Trafficking Awareness Month. So the more information that we can make certain that Tennesseans have, that other of our citizens have, the awareness of what is happening, how these rings are operating. It has been so surprising to so many people that I've talked with that there are so many sex trafficking and human trafficking rings. When you look at the growth in calls that are going into different law enforcement agencies for help, in Tennessee alone, in 2019, I think we had 60 calls. In 2021, 600. And last year, 700 calls for help that went in because of this explosion of human trafficking and sex trafficking that's taking place.
That's a huge amount of, a huge addition of calls. What do you think the cause is for this to be growing exponentially like that?
There are a couple of things that we see happening. First of all, we know that many teenagers are meeting pedophiles in the virtual space, and the grooming will start in the virtual space. And so you have these rings that are recruiting girls, grooming girls, and then pulling them, girls and boys, I will say, and then pulling them in to their orbit, and then pushing them into the human trafficking, sex trafficking business. TBI uses a stat that they've shared with us, and it is every 2 minutes a child is bought or sold for sex in this country. That is an astounding statistic. And people are using the virtual space because they have anonymity up to a point. That's why you've seen such an explosion in trafficking, in child sexual abuse material. And of course, we've had legislation that is moving forward. My Report Act recently passed. We have the CSAM bill that would deal with this child sexual abuse. We have the Earn It Act, different components that will tighten up the rules and regulations and help law enforcement track down these traffickers.
Senator, before I let you go, I do want to get back to the Epstein documents really quickly. I know at the very top of our conversation, you said we shouldn't be focusing on the celebrity, those big names that have been released. As we know, Donald Trump is one of those names. You're supporting him for 2024. What do you make of him being one of those names?
As I said, not everybody on the list is accused of wrongdoing. Not everyone on that list has witnessed crimes. You've got many names that came up through these documents. Some of these are people that just knew Jeffrey Epstein and then broke off a relationship with him. And in the Trump case, it was a plane putting down, I think, in Atlantic City, and Jeffrey Epstein said, well, we'll go to Trump's casino.
And finally, how close are you to getting those flight logs released, or are you just waiting on Senator Durbin to get that subpoena?
We have to have the subpoena. That is item number one.
Senator Blackburn, I appreciate the conversation. Thank you for joining me.
You got it.